Murphy, come on. Murphy. All right, hello and welcome everybody to your Wyoming PTAC Lunch and Learn. Today is Wednesday, December 1st, 2021. Happy to have everybody here. And for those of you that are watching the recording, happy you're doing that as well. My name is Janine Forsyth Lefevre. I am the program manager for your Wyoming PTAC. I'm joined by Ms. Katie Christensen, who is our procurement specialist. She's a procurement counselor here. And we're really, really lucky to have Eric. How do you say your last name, Eric?
Redig.
Redig. That's what I was going to say. Eric Redig of the GSA talking to us. He's based in Colorado, has a ton of experience, and he's going to be going through what you need to know about GSA schedules. So without taking up any more time, Eric, I will throw it to you, and you just holler at me when you would like for me to change the slides. How about?
All right. Well, good afternoon. And I see that Whitney is on the line. Good afternoon, and anybody for the recording. My name is Eric Redig. I am the Small Business Technical Advisor for GSA Region 8, which is the Rocky Mountain region based out of Denver. And our states, I'll go over that a little bit later, but it basically includes the Rocky Mountain region. I am for GSA. I work with both the PBS side, and I'll discuss them a little bit later, and FAST. But I am here to help small businesses in the realm of government contracting with GSA. Next slide. So just a quick overview of today's agenda, what we do, the importance of market research prior to, really anything, not only the GSA schedule, but just looking for any form of government contracting, why it's important. Cover some prerequisites of the schedule and outline the process again on schedule. So normally this is a little bit longer session, but I'm going to try to keep to an hour. But if you have any questions, please come off mute and ask questions, or I believe we probably have a chat box. Next slide. So quick overview of what OSTBU does. Every federal agency has an OSTBU's office, but by public law, we have to have one. It may not be called OSTBU. Sometimes it's called Small Business Office or something of that nature. And generally, if you can Google the agency name, National Park System, Small Business Office, and you would find a location or something like that. It's the same with GSA or anything. But why we are here to advocate on your behalf. So maximum practical, abilities to try to award to small businesses and help small business. So every administration has goals, and in this current administration and where we're at under the Biden-Harris administration, we're looking at doing more small business set-asides and more small business awards. So training and GSA schedule and other contracting vehicles are important for small businesses as we move on, but we're here to help you with that. We're also here to help you with the prime and subcontractors, try to help make those connections. And so if you're interested in those things, you can always obviously reach out to the PTAC, but also reach out to a small business specialist, and we can help you. And we're just here to help you out. that is probably the biggest thing I can really say. Next slide. So as I was saying, GSA Ostabu, GSA has 11 regions. And so I'm in region 8, Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, Montana, and the Dakotas, north and south. So, but there's, 10 other regions beside myself. If you ever need to have or looking for somebody in another state, in another region, just reach out to me. I can always get you in touch with my counterparts. But all the regions, we all work together for the same purpose, help small business. Next region, or next slide. So what is the GSA schedule? GSA schedule is a long-term IDIQ contract. It is, it's been established for many, many years, decades really. It was authorized by, the FAR, but it's a long-term IDIQ contract. It had a lot of updates in 2017, 2019. And so it's here, and it's supposed to be a fast, flexible, and cost-effective procurement solution for federal agencies. The GSA schedule, everybody refers to as the GSA schedule. Yes, we are the owners of the schedule, and we do the contracting activity of establishing the schedule. However, every federal agency can utilize the GSA schedule. And in some cases, state and local governments, depending like on national emergencies and stuff like that, also have the ability to use the GSA schedule for product and services. So it is open to all federal agencies. And there are a lot of federal agencies, about 300 of them. So they can go ahead and utilize it at any given time. It represents about 21% of the federal spending is procured through the GSA multi-award schedule. So there's a lot of federal dollars that come in and, that go through the schedule and are awarded to schedule holders. So the schedule is there. It is useful. A lot of agencies like to use it. So yeah, it's a great opportunity. However, it requires a commitment to be successful. Just because you get on schedule doesn't mean, oh, hey, I'm on schedule, where's my contract? You do have to market. You do have to make your proposals when they put out a sources site. You still have to reply to those. The thing is, it's limited to the people that are only on schedule and only under those SINs. So I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. Next slide. All right, so I had talked about the schedule had changed a lot. A lot of people may know that the old schedules, there used to be 26 multi-award schedules prior to the consolidation, which started in late calendar year 18, the beginning of fiscal year 19. And basically what happened was we had 26 schedules. Now, what I will caveat here real quick is that this does not include the medical schedules that are operated and overseen by the VA. So this is just the normal schedule that we had. We took those 26 schedules and we combined them into one. It's now called just mass or multi-award schedule. So it made it easier for a lot of businesses and contracting officers to utilize. So we've gone through phase 1, it's completed. Phase 2 has been completed, where they modified everything. We're like, it says FY20, we're supposed to have been closing out phase 3, but those are the final closeout of contracts as we're executing and finishing up those contracts. But the old contracts are all disappearing. So some people are probably familiar with, maybe the 03 FAC or IT 70 or Schedule 70 or something of that nature. Well, the work still exists. It's just not referred to as that. So the next slide. I think the biggest thing off that last slide was we went from 888 SINs down to like 317. So, which is really good. So this is now what the multi-award schedule categories look like. We still have IT, professional services, et cetera. And this is what they're there. And so you'll be, you'll get to know these schedules and see which ones fit best with you. The nice thing about the new multi-award schedule is under the old scheme, if you did IT and professional services, you would have had to apply for both schedules, because there are two separate schedules. Now you apply for the one schedule and you look under and you identify your experience with past performance of everything that you do as a business. And so if you did IT, professional services, and human capital as a business, let's say, you no longer had to be on 3 different schedules. You're on one schedule, and they identify that by SIN. And you're now have those SINs that are associated to you, so you could bid on opportunities that come out under those SINs. And the SIN is a special identifying number, and it's closely related to your NICS codes of what you do. And so it made it a lot simpler for businesses to get on schedule and list other professional services that they do, or products that they do, all under one schedule, and without having to apply and spend the capital, time, and resources to get on the schedule. So these are the 12 categories. Next slide, please. So that was a little history about the old schedule to the new schedule. So let's get into some of the things to consider about the multi-award schedule. There is a minimum sales requirement to maintain your schedule. So once you become a GSA schedule holder, you have to generate 25,000 in sales in the first 2 years, because we know it takes a while to get on schedule and to get those sales started. And then you have to maintain that 25,000 every year thereafter. Now, this may be very difficult for some businesses, and this is where you really have to examine what you do as a business and say, is the GSA multi-award schedule right for me? Can I, or do I feel like I can produce 25,000 in sales every year via the GSA schedule? Some categories are probably pretty easy, some categories probably not. What I will tell you though is that some categories are have a lot of different firms that you'll compete against, where other categories you may not. And so, if it's IT, you're competing against a large group of other IT companies that are on schedule. So it depends, right? As a business and as a business owner, you really have to look at it and say, is it right for me? And we do that, and we can help you with that, and PTAC can help you with that by doing market research. And you have to do your market research and say, hey, how many sales do we have? Can I get that piece of pie? And so you have to look at that and say, yeah, this is it, and I think I can be successful doing that. So these are things to consider up front before you even expend the time and effort to try to get on the multi-award schedule. Next slide. So one of the tools we use to see, hey, how much business goes through the multi-award schedule is we have a system that's called SSQ Plus. And so it's a schedule sales query system. And what this does, it queries the system for sales in a given time period. And there's a lot of areas that you can manipulate to try to see how much it is. I think this is a basic snapshot of what the system looks like. These numbers were taken from January 20 through December 2021 of when I took this. And basically what you're looking at, with no diving deep into the different SINs and the different product service codes or anything like that, it looks like a good portion of the sales are that orange or small business. So the blue is other than small, colleges, large businesses, etc. There are 14,000, almost 14,500 active contracts. There are, total contracts over 17,000. There are over 14,000 vendors on the multi-award schedule, and these are what the numbers break down. And those numbers are in billions of dollars. So there's a large amount. Now, you're like, oh, okay. But in the nice gray boxes on the side is where you'd really start focusing in on what you do as a business. So if you do IT, right, we need to find your SIN group and find those SINs, because there's multiple SINs that are associated with IT. You know, there's software development, there's hardware, there's cabling, et cetera, et cetera. So try to figure out, hey, what do I do as a business? What SINs apply to me? And then go in here and identify the SINs in here and break it down and say, oh, okay, this is how much sales go through the multi-award schedule, how many firms are on this, and how many contracts are let. And you can do different time periods. I had just done this time period. You can go back 5 years, you can go back a year. But this is your pre-homework to saying, hey, is the schedule right for me? You may pick a SIN category that has very little small business set aside and mostly go into large business. May not be right for you. As a small business, do I want to fight that fight? You know, do I want to put out the efforts and stuff knowing that most of it go to large business? Or you may look and say, oh, well, over the last, 2 years, they've only, there's only been 25 or 40 awards that were made on that multi-award schedule under that SIN. And, I just don't feel like it's worth my time and effort to do that. And that's what this tool should help you decide. And so the next slide. And so you can find the information, and you'll get the slides. There's a link to the multi-award, or how to do a sales query, and a training slide that can help you go through that. So I always recommend this being the first step. How do I see if the schedule is right for me? So let's say the schedule is right for you. Okay, so let's go to the next step. Next slide. Let's look. There are some prerequisites to being on schedule. So now, okay, schedule's right for me. And, let's look at some of the prerequisites. Well, I have to be in business for 2 years, and you must provide 2 years of financials. I will get into some of the waivers in a few minutes about later on, about what's being waived right now due to the pandemic. The 2-year is in a waiver right now, but we expect that to end soon. But I'll touch a little bit on that a little bit later. So do you have 2 years? Have you been registered in SAN for 2 years? You have your financials for 2 years, etc. The ability to demonstrate past performance. Now, this has changed. It's become more of a narrative than it was before under the old multi-award schedule, but you still have to be able to demonstrate past performance. And this is really gets into your ability to write and tell us what you do. What I always recommend is, as you keep those statements of work, invoices, SALs, SOs, PWSs, from jobs that you've had previously, because you can take that and submit that as your portion, as part of your evidence of, hey, this is what my performance work statement was, and this is what I did, as long with your invoices to show that past performance. So it's really a narrative form, but you still have to have some evidence. You have to have evidence that, hey, this is what you performed. So if you're thinking about this and you just got done with the contract and you're like, oh, take that performance work statement, hopefully it's digitalized, and set it aside and keep a folder of those so that you can show that, this is what I do. And for all aspects of your business you'd like to get on schedule for. It must be commercially available. And so I get these weird questions sometimes. Well, what's commercially available? Well, I build a handheld radio. I only sell it to the Department of Defense, for secret op missions. Okay, well, that's cool, but it is commercially available, right? Handheld radios are commercially available. So you don't say it's just for special ops. Handheld radios are commercially available. So yes, it would be a commercially available item. The same with engineering, even if you only do engineering related to military service or something like that. But engineering is a commercially available service. If you only make Sidewinder missiles and that's not commercially available, right? It's only available to the military or government. So you have to have an understanding of that, and it has to comply with the Trade Agreement Act. And I'll leave that up to you to Google the Trade Agreement Act and read it. Most likely your product will meet that category. Next slide. So we do have an exception for the GSA schedule for IT categories. We know that IT changes very quickly, and to wait 2 years to become eligible to get on schedule when you have the latest and greatest IT technology, it's just not feasible. So we provide a waiver. There's a waiver. So if you're in the IT category and you just started up, you just left Google or Oracle or something, and you have the latest, greatest IT, you can get on the multi-award schedule. So there are waivers for that. So in lieu of 2 years of corporate experience, 2 years of experience, we're looking at, do you have corporate experience, professional experiences, what did you do? Were you a project manager at one of those facilities or one of those businesses? Given you your expertise, and really the biggest thing is, do you have the financial backing personally to stay in business, right? If you don't get a contract, the worst case scenario is, right, you do this, we get you on schedule, like, I can't afford to do this, I'm going to go back to work for whoever. And so they want to look and make sure that you have the ability to, sustain your business with personal finances. So there's a link to the Springboard. It gives you more information. You can always reach out to me also. Next slide. So here are some of the information you need to register for SAM as we move along. And I believe I'm still doing well on time. As we know, the DUNS numbers, we still talk about DUNS number. DUNS numbers are still being used until, I believe, the end of January, beginning of February, sometime in that time period. I've seen something that came out that, hey, the DUNS numbers will stop sometime in the beginning of the year, and the new unique identifier that's generated in SAM will come out and be utilized. But in the meantime, we're still utilizing the DUNS system, but the DUNS numbers are going away. If you are already a registered company, you already have SAM account, I would always ask PTAC, but log into SAM and see, because your new unique identifier has already been generated. And get that and put it on your literature, your capability statement, business cards, whatever, because come the new year, when the DUNS number disappears and the contracting officer is wanting to find you and look for you, they're going to need some number, and their unique identifier is what they're going to be able to find you with. So I would recommend doing that. You have to be registered in SAM and have an active registration within 1 year of your GSA schedule application. So it will take a while to generate this application and do your whole thing. So I always recommend, it's good practice, get into SAM and every year and make sure your SAM is up to speed and correct. And so it's a good time just to make sure you have that 1 year, because if it's not activated in 1 year, they're going to be like, we can't accept your application. So don't want to get into something like that. So that's a little bit about SAM. But I guess the main point I'd like to point out about SAM and keeping it updated is SAM feeds all the federal systems that are out here that we utilize in the government. So the information in SAM will also feed into your application for the multi-award schedule. So if something is wrong, the wrong information is going to be moved over. And I know PTAC is there. PTAC is a great resource for you guys to reach out. Hey, help me. I need to update SAM. How do I do this? So, we're talking size standard. We're talking NICS codes. We're talking, structure, business structure. All these things are important because all that information moves over to your application process when you establish your application in the system. Next slide. So I leave the slide in there and eventually we'll take it out, but effective in March, GSA went away from and transitioned to a new system. It's called GSA Fast ID. So you no longer have to have a digital certificate. The old system and prior to March, you used to have to go out and purchase a digital certificate to be able to sign all your documents and stuff like that. That has all gone away now. We now use Fast ID. It's secure. You create your account and it's only your account. And by creating that account, when you sign documents, it puts your digital signature on everything. So good thing, you don't have to expend the money anymore to go out and buy a digital certificate. But the thing is that it's only associated with your account. So you'll have to remember that as you go through. When you create your e-offer in your your account in the system under e-offer and e-mod system, it pulls all that information not only from SAM, but then signs everything with this digital account. So it's just a good thing. I like to let people know. Some people that may have been or attended these classes previously and were asking for a refresher. Oh, hey, I bought a digital certificate. It's no longer required. Next slide. Oh, I know we're going good. I don't see any questions. So now let's get into some registration and certification things. Like, what do you need to do? So, more of that. So there is some required training, along with, making sure the schedule is right for you through SSQ. We require that you have 2 classes. It's free. It's through our vendor education center, GSA. One of them, and they both have to be completed within 1 year of your application. So don't go running out and doing it today and saying, okay, because if you're not going to get to applying for the schedule for a while, then the certificate would expire and you would have to probably do it again if you don't get it done within 1 year. But the 2 classes is Pathways to Success and Readiness Assessment. So they're both about 2 hours and 2.5 hours a piece. It's, something you can do at night after everybody's asleep or you're done working and you're sitting there and, wondering what you could do. Great training for you to do. Next slide. So let's get into some of the required documents. And this is where PTAC, helps you out also. You can reach out to them. You can reach out to a small business specialist like myself in this region, and I can help you out. But there's a lot of required documents. And the thing is, there's another web link that will show you where all these documents are. You don't have to recreate the wheel for all these documents. Some of these templates are already made for you. But if you are using an authorized agent, you're using somebody to do this account for you and create your multi-award schedule, you must have an authorized letter that's put in with the package, and it has to be signed by the company official. So the owner of the business, the president, CEO, however the structure of your business is. Obviously, you have to do the 2 tests and provide those training certificates. Past performance. This is where you really need to start focusing and start building up and getting your information together, right? It used to just rely on CPARs and things like that, but now it's not. It's a narrative. So you can get your CPARs from if you've done work with other federal agencies and you met the category, the criteria for a CPAR. So get your CPARs ratings. A narrative from the customer reference. So, you've worked for as a sub, as a on a major contract, whether it be the government or something like that, state, local, whatever, you want to show that narrative and the customer's narrative along with, you know, the work that you performed. And that's where it gets into those invoices, statement of works, PWSs, etc. Start gathering all this, because when you write your narrative, you want to have some supporting evidence to you know, validate, you know, that, hey, you have experience in this area. The next thing is, if you are other than small business, we require a subcontracting plan. There's a template that's available, but for the most part, you know, we're addressing mostly small businesses, so a subcontracting plan wouldn't be required. Next slide. There's a commercial sales practice format, right? We provide a template, so you don't have to recreate this, but you're going to end up putting in all your, you know, sales and identifying it to a SIN. And so, and then, you know, this is where it will ask about written discount policies and stuff like that for that you provide, and the prices that you're going to offer to the government. So your most favorable customer, like, you know, you sell products and you sell them to Grainger all the time, and if Grainger comes, they get, you know, 35% markdown right off the bat. Well, you'll have to list that, and things like that. 2 years financials, you reach out. If you do it internally through QuickBooks or Quicken or something of that nature, right, you'll have it. If you use an accounting service, you know, reach out to them and get your 2 years of financials. Then we start getting into your price proposal templates, and that is where you start looking at supporting your pricing for what you do. Now, I have had on occasions businesses reach out to me and they're like, well, the contracting officer needs to do a sample, or they want to look at all the pricing that I provided them. And I'm like, okay, what do you do? They're like, we're a wholesaler. We're a wholesale retailer. And I'm like, oh, and they listed like 20-some thousand items. And so the contracting officer has to validate a lot of this information. So, you know, sometimes when you're looking at this to get on schedule, and we've made it easier to do modifications, I'll talk a little bit about that, but you may want to maybe pare down some of what you provide to originally get on schedule, and then decide to add more services later, especially if you have a large amount of items that you supply. If you're an engineering firm and you only provide engineering services, that's easy, IT and stuff. But if you're a wholesaler of something of that nature and you provide a lot of product, you may want to consider some of these things. Once again, pricing support, you know, so these are your invoices. You know, you sold 20,000 widgets to Grainger, and this is the price. They're going to be looking for those invoices. So you may have to start digging through some of your records and getting some of this information. And that's a lot about the multi-award schedule, is trying to get all this information. And unfortunately, only the business has this. You know, PTACs can help you with this, with the narratives and helping you put this together, but we don't have access to all your records. You're going to have to get this. And so your market rate sheets, these are all things that are available, especially for products, and a professional compensation plan. So this is a good time if you have like an employee handbook, that's what they're looking for. But if you don't, maybe you want to reach out to PTAC or something and create a small employee handbook. And this is where, hey, I have 13 employees, we provide, you know, time off, holidays, you know, overtime pay, you know, do you offer a gym membership or something like that? They're looking for compensation and things like that. Next slide. Then we start getting in the technical proposal, and the technical proposal and the information required for that is in SAM under Contracting Opportunities. And there's a link to the SAM site to get this, but this is where all 12 of those large categories have a technical proposal to them. the thing is, if you don't, you're only going to do the technical proposals that apply to your business. Now, if you reach across 3 or 4 different areas, you're going to have to do 3 or 4 different technical proposals. If you're focused just in one area, IT, and that's it, you're only going to be looking at the IT technical proposal portion. If you're an authorized supplier, they're looking for a letter that says you're an authorized supplier from the supplier. So if you're an authorized retailer of Microsoft Office, they're going to be looking for that to make sure that you are, because of warranty purposes and things like that. So just remember that. And then, of course, if you've ever applied for the FSS, is the Federal Supplies schedule, it's the same as the multi-award schedule. It's all interchangeable. The FAR just calls it FSS. But if you've ever applied for the schedule and were rejected, or canceled for any reason for lack of sales, you'll have to provide those letters. You would say, hey, GSA, why don't you have it? Well, we have 7 different multi-award schedule offices, contracting offices, and now they're all just basically, those 7 offices just work however. So you may have had something that was done in Atlanta at one point, and now it's going to be done in Kansas City or Seattle or something like that. So they're looking for those types of letters and stuff. So you have to go back and look for that. If you can't find it, I'd reach out to your old contracting officer and try to see if they still have it. Next slide. I'm still doing well on time. So I had talked about what the GSA waivers were. The head of contracting for GSA has issued some waivers as part of the response to the pandemic. And so some of those waivers included and will remain into effect until rescinded by GSA. And some of those are the 2 year of corporate experience, 2 years of financials. And, it says project experience per SIN. You only have to have 1 project experience per SIN, where you would have under the old one multiples, 2 or 3 experiences, or contracts showing that you have experience under that SIN. As I said, this is still in effect. Do not know when the head of RSB's office will rescind this requirement, but right now this is still in effect. So if you're in that boat and you're thinking, well, I don't have 2 years experience for financials, today's a good time to start doing this and trying to get on the multi-award schedule, especially if you would have been looking for a waiver, or you didn't have the 2 year experience or something like that. So good time to start moving forward to it. But as I said, I don't know when it's going to expire. Next slide. So we're not going to leave you all in the dark. I know I talk fast and I've given you a lot of information on this. And so we're not going to just throw you in the dark. There is a website. We have Gsa.gov Mass Roadmap, and the Mass Roadmap is a great site. What it does, and this is what it looks like, it's kind of condensed because it's a large page, but if you go to this site, everything that's highlighted in blue are links. So when it says assemble these for your offer, and it says complete these forms, if you click on complete these forms, it's going to bring you up to all the templates that I had talked about. So your pricing sheet, the authorization letter, you'll just need to download all these templates and start completing and compiling all and getting it all done. It will show you, it says, hey, compile this information. It's going to list all the things that you're going to need to compile. And your training, how to register, reading the solicitation. These are all links to getting you prepared to submit your offer. And I know PTAC is here to help us and help you, and they can help you through this process. But if you're at home late at night and PTAC is at home sleeping, and you're like, oh, I wonder what other forms I need to do, you can go here and click on and start doing all this. And then it gets into submitting your order, your offer, reviewing and negotiating and selling and stuff like that. There's links for all this. We've tried to make this roadmap as easy as possible and usable, friendly user as possible, and to help you through this entire process. And so if you have questions, you get stuck, obviously we have PTAC available. You have the GSA Office of Small Business here. We're here to help you out too. You can reach out to me. As I said, this is one contracting vehicle, and this is the multi-award schedule. There's a lot of different contracting vehicles that are out here that you may also be interested in. But obviously the multi-award schedule is a long-term one. It's a continually open offer, and so you'll be able to at any time submit this. There's no time period of when you can apply or not apply, unlike other IDIQ contracts that may come around, such as a GWAC, which is like Oasis or Polaris or some of the other ones that will be open for a period of time. They'll take on and only award so many people. The multi-award schedule is a continually open contract, and they're bringing people on and off all the time. One of the things I will tell you with that is right now they're saying it's about 9 months or so to get awarded the multi-award schedule. So it won't happen overnight. And so, start working on your stuff and getting everything ready to make your offer, or, submit your offer. And then the clock's going to start ticking, and expect it to take about 9 months. Those contracting officers are extremely busy with a lot of offers. Obviously, a lot of people make submissions, and so they're going to have to work through these. It's best if you have all your information available and you get everything loaded in there correctly. It makes them going through the system a lot easier, and they may not have to go back to you and ask for more information or reject it or something of that nature. So next slide. This one's a little bit hard to see, but you'll see the website. We do have a schedule news and update. This is on our multi-award insight page, interaction page. And I do recommend, if you are interested or you are a schedule holder, that you actually sign up and get this, because there's going to be a lot of information that changes with the multi-award schedule, right? And so they post it here sometimes before I even get to know it, right? So they may post on here, hey, the new mod is coming out, expect to see this. And so you're like, well, a mod, I'm already on schedule. Well, part of the whole pandemic and the COVID-19, a lot of the stuff that's come out, they've had to modify contracts to include the multi-award schedule contract for the pandemic and things like that. So you'll get a notice on here, hey, look for it. Hey, we're putting out a mod next week. Be looking for that, because as we know, all small businesses get busy and things go into our inbox that we don't get to for a long time. And you're like, oh, wow, I missed this. Well, sometimes, you need to keep up on these. And this is a good way to get some information on what is coming, the coming and goings with the multi-award schedule. That entire office is busy and they do a lot of these things. So next slide. So it wouldn't be actually a training thing if we don't plug some subcontracting opportunities. GSA, obviously, the Office of Small Business, we're here for two reasons, right? Helping small business, not only as a prime contractor, but as a subcontractor. We're always, trying to make those connections between primes and subs. And that's part of my job here. And so we do have a site for subcontracting opportunities. The SBA, I believe, has a site, their subnet site for subcontracting opportunities. So if you're a newer business and you're looking, well, hey, maybe the schedule's not right for me, maybe I want to be a subcontractor, something like that, this is what's here to help you. And so what I will tell you is that maybe, the multi-award schedule may not be right for you. And you're like, it's just too much. I don't know if I'll generate the sales, but I still want to do these things and stuff like that. I would recommend reaching out sometimes to schedule holders. And there's a list, and you can find this who is on the multi-award schedule by looking at eLibrary. And I can, I'll have to send you a link to that, and you can send it out, the PowerPoints. But if you look under eLink, and you can look under that multi-award schedule and let's say 03 FAC, and you'll see listed 250 businesses, right? And their contact information is there. So maybe you don't do all that, but you're like, you know what? I'd like to learn a little bit about the multi-award schedule and how it works. Reach out to these businesses. Hey, I'm here. I can do subcontracting opportunities here in the Wyoming, Montana, Colorado, Utah area. This is where we kind of focus at. And part of this is I'd like to learn a little bit about the multi-award schedule and how it operates, and learn from you guys, not as a direct competitor, but more as a subcontractor, and getting to understand the multi-award schedule a little bit more as we move forward. So subcontracting can always be a good opportunity also. And if you have questions about that, hey, how do I approach that and things like that, I know PTAC can help you with that. You can always reach out to me, and I'm here to help answer questions and stuff like that. So next slide. Always love to plug our resource partners. Obviously, you're probably plugged in with PTAC. We rely on PTAC a lot. There's PTAC offices in all 50 states. So they are our go-to resource. They're here. But if you're interested in anything, obviously PTAC is a great resource. The SBA, they cover social economic categories and things like that. So if you're really interested in looking, hey, am I in a hub zone? PTAC can help you with that, but you can also look at the SBA websites too, or reach out to SBA about the 8A program and another women-owned program, hub zone, veteran-owned, and other resources too. They not only do they do the contracting, like the social economic stuff, but if you're into construction and you need bonding, they have a bonding side. If you're a business and you're looking for loans and small business loans and things like that, they do the lending. They have lenders and stuff with SBA backing, so SBA is a good place. They have the minority business development agencies through Department of Commerce, and there's just a lot of different things. We also have other training events, and I have a link on there for other training events that we do from a national office. They're updated all the time. There's obviously a lot of different events that go on. Not only within OSTABU, but within GSA. So I recommend looking at that in our small business resources. Next slide. Here's just a quick site, and you'll have this, hey, how do you find one of us? There's always ways to find and locate a small business specialist in GSA if I'm not around or something like that. And that's what this is. But next slide, I have a question slide with my contact information on here. So I'm not sure if we have any questions. I kind of went through this a little bit quick. I know it's a lunch and learn and everybody's always busy, but my contact information is there. It's eric.rettig@gsa.gov. And you can email me at any time with questions. If you get stumped on something, if you just need resources, you're trying to find something, just let me know. And with that, I hope I answered most of your questions, or some of them. Believe me, we can go a lot in depth on a lot of the slides, and I can bring up the websites and help you navigate through that. But as a lunch and learn, I kind of went over this kind of quickly. So
I think it was great. Yeah, thank you so much, Eric. This is Janine. I think that was really informative. I always learn something too. So this kind of doubles as a training for us PTAC folks, right? To make sure that we're up to speed on everything. one thing I appreciated about your presentation, I feel like it does a good job of indicating what a long game this is, right? It's a long game. And I don't know, I know from my perspective as a PTAC counselor, one thing that I've seen in the past is, a small business owner getting really excited about the idea of getting on a multiple award schedule, and kind of starting down the path and then figuring out, oh, wow, this actually, there are quite a few documents I need to gather, quite a few steps. And then it just kind of falls off to the wayside. And then you're kind of past that 1 year since you've taken your training. And so I like the idea of managing our expectations, right? This can be a really, really lucrative opportunity for the right small business. And you have to have that discipline and the time really to put together your proposal and all of the accompanying documents and pieces that you need. I was wondering, Eric, are there any common mistakes or errors or missteps that folks make that you see often or over and over again?
Yeah, and thank you for pointing that out. This is a long-term, this takes a long time to get on the schedule. And so some of the mistakes and stuff that happen are, here's some of the things that I hear. Hey, I was talking to a contracting officer, this opportunity is coming up and they plan on utilizing the multi-award schedule. Can I get on the multi-award schedule, today? I'm like, no, it's a long-term thing. We're locking 9 months. So if you're looking for opportunities and you're talking to these federal agencies and they mention, hey, multi-award schedule, it's best to start it now, right? I mean, even if you think the contract's expiring next year, you'll need to be like trying to get on schedule now. Some of the biggest things that I see hiccups is in pricing. Not able to justify their price of a product or service and not having the evidence to show past performance and expertise in something. So a lot of times you get companies that, list too many items, right? And so, and then at that point, they're like, they don't have the evidence to back them up. A lot of times, and that's important because you'll get companies that say, well, I can get the expertise, I can go hire my brother Joe and he's a mechanical engineer. So I have that expertise with it. It's not how it works when they're applying for the schedule. They're looking for what has the company done and can currently do. So, what have you done in the past, that past performance, and really focusing on what you do as a company. And then identifying the prices and really being able to negotiate and stand firm on the price that you're proposing. All things, being equal, really, it's easy to get the letters together and subcontracting plans and stuff like that. It really focuses on past performance and pricing are the two biggest things in almost any government contract, but especially in this, because they're trying to say, Mr. or Mrs. Company XYZ, you are a specialist in IT software design. We've identified this. Yes, you have this capability. We're awarding the multi-award schedule to you under IT. And, as those task orders come, you should be able to execute or do the majority of those task orders for IT services, software development. So, you're in that process where they're literally trying to vet you and say, yes, you are a business. You've done this, you have past performance experience, and you're able to do this moving forward. So those are some of the biggest things. I think a lot of times companies get into, they they do a lot of this work. They may use a PTAC, they may not, or an authorized agent. They submit an application and then it's just too overwhelming for them and they're not able to respond. I think that's another thing, is that companies, small businesses, especially, right, limited resources, limited, manpower and stuff like that. And once you make that application for the multi-award schedule, is when that contractor officer starts working your proposal, they're going to be looking for answers. And if you don't respond to them in a very in a timely fashion, they're going to deny your application. So you have to be ready for this and be able to respond and answer the questions that they have, whether it be in pricing or whatever it may possibly be. So being responsive to those things also is one of the things I see a lot of businesses struggle with.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. Katie or Whitney, any questions for Eric before we let him continue on with his day?
No, this was super informative and helpful. Thanks, Eric.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, really great. And as I mentioned, I will get the recording up for the folks that I know wanted to be here and were interested and just had a conflict. So I appreciate you being willing to do that, Eric. And yeah, we enjoy having a partnership with folks at the GSA. I know for me personally, I've been watching that Polaris GWAC conversation as it continues to unfold. I think that's going to be an interesting thing to watch and look at. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, give me a call, and I'm happy to tell you a little bit more of what I know about the Polaris government-wide acquisition contract. So with that, yeah, I know it's exciting. When I first saw the name of it, I was like, Polaris, because that reminded me of a snowmobile, of course, right?
Right. and you have a great point, is that this is one contracting vehicle that's out there, and we talk a lot about the multi-award schedule because you hear a lot about it from contracting activities, but there are other ones out there. Polaris will be open, and it will be only open for, I'm expecting, a short period of time, probably a few months, and they're going to on-ramp a large group of contractors. So it's just one avenue. And so there's a lot of emphasis on small businesses, and this is just one avenue to you as a small business. So Polaris could be another one. There's nothing that says you can't apply for Polaris, a multi-award schedule, individual IDIQ that may come out of an agency. If you're in the IT realm, they have NASA SOUP, which is an IT big multi-award schedule for IT services for NASA and other federal agencies. So there's a lot of different IDIQ contracts out there. The multi-award schedule is just one of them. And, I hope, we can get more people on there. It's a great way of doing business, and it helps businesses and the government out a lot in the contracting realm.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending. For those of you that celebrate, happy holidays coming up. I feel like it's December 1st. I can officially say that.
Yes.
Yes. And yeah, hope to talk to you again soon, Eric. Everybody take care, and we will talk to you later.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.